you have to become a softie, you have to become vulnerable. It doesn't sound very cool, right? I feel like I was raised with like, you gotta be tough, you don't have to show any emotions, you gotta be a wall. That's what's cool, right? But as the years have passed, I've met many people who just have repressed their emotions so much and are just so miserable that it made me realize that keeping in stuff is not good. So for example, my last relationship was with a man who was like a stone cold person, and he had a lot of good things about him, but he literally like was a wall. Like nothing would affect him too much. This was his expression, and it was funny because sometimes he was so happy and he would like try to repress his smile. And at the time I thought it was cute, but as the relationship developed, it became such a heavy burden that I couldn't carry anymore. But I saw for the first time how repressing your emotion can affect your relationship, how it can make them so hard for the other person. And there is also another person who made me reflect on this, and this is a girl I met at work, and she had a lot of bad things happen to her and she never really processed the emotions she felt. Anyone in her position would have had a hard time dealing with it. But her solution was to work. I've never met anyone who worked as much and as hard as she did. It's like when she was cleaning, like she would clean like she was cleaning. And you know, we were friends. The problem is that as the year progressed, this pain that she had just became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where she was so mean at times, even with her friends. It was just such a experience to be around these two people that it really impacted me deeply. I didn't want to become a person who was detached with their own feelings, with their own internal world. When I was little, I was very affectionate, very sweet. But you know, as you grow up and you're in your teens, you just become a bit hardened by life. You know, bad things start to happen, and then another bad thing, and another bad thing, and another bad thing. And things start to build up that you put this shield on you when you're like, you know what? No. Not doing this. But these people made me realize that if you let the hard things in life get to you and you decide to close yourself off to the world, all you will achieve is be alone. And I don't mean be alone like nobody will be around you. You'll always have people around you, but be alone in the sense no one will ever see you, no one will ever understand you, no one will ever be able to get close to you. I didn't want that for me, I didn't want that for future Sofia, so I decided to become a bit of a softie. And you know, I think that a lot of people repress at least some of their emotions, but I have been on a journey where I really try to repress my emotion the least amount possible. And this has really helped me get in touch with what I actually feel, because sometimes we feel something and we are not quite sure how to put a word on it, and I think that creates that disconnect between ourselves and the world, and then we get confused and then we get lost, and then sometimes we're so lost we don't even know we're lost. So yeah, anyways, so I decided to make a video on this topic because this week I was talking with an old friend of mine, and I think he knew me in that tough era of my life, and I have changed a lot since then, obviously. But I was talking to him and I was like being a softie, you know, I was just sharing like my emotions, what I thought, etc, etc. And I found that he was answering in a very sweet way. He even apologized for things he didn't need to apologize about. He talked about like events that happened a long time ago, what he felt, what he didn't feel, and all these things that were really a surprise to me because I wasn't expecting him to say any of those things. I was pleasantly surprised, don't get me wrong. And then at some point we were talking about the fact that I became a bit of a softie, and he said, well, maybe that's a good thing. And this really made me stop and think, wait a minute. I really think that the reason he opened up and he was able to express some of his feelings and emotions, it was because I was being vulnerable. It was because I was being a softie. And so that allowed him the space to be a bit softer, to be a bit more vulnerable. And I think if more people were able to embrace their vulnerable side, more people would feel comfortable and safe enough to also share their soft side, because it's like you're telling them, hey, it's okay, you can be vulnerable because I'm being vulnerable too, so you know, it's fine. And you know what, like, sure, there's gonna be people that are gonna be dicks about it, but let me tell you a secret. You don't need them in your life, okay? You don't. So fuck them. And you know, maybe some people are not gonna be vulnerable right away. Maybe it will take time for them to open up like you are. But you're still showing them that it's okay to be vulnerable. And I think that's such a precious gift that you can give somebody. So now, to the good stuff. If I have convinced you to become a bit of a softie, these are a couple things you can do to kind of start your journey. So point number one is to understand exactly what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. And if this sounds easy to you, you're in for a treat, because it's probably the hardest thing that you're gonna have to do through this journey. Like, it's really freaking hard, and you're gonna be surprised of how often you experience an emotion but you don't know exactly what emotion it is. You just know you feel something, and how many times you don't know where it's coming from. So to start this, you have to stop and understand what you feel. Every time something is coming up, just stop and try to give a name to what you're feeling. Acknowledge it, let it be, let it sit there, just let it flow in your body, if that makes sense. You know, sometimes I'll wake up and I'm upset, and I feel that I'm upset, like I feel like there's something off. You know that feeling where you know that if somebody's gonna say a word to you, you're gonna like flip? I'd be able to get in touch with that feeling and understand it and catch it before I actually snap at somebody. You know, the second step is to actually communicate it. And I know this sounds hard, but I promise you that once you do the work of the first step and you have the words to express what it is that you feel, it's gonna be a lot easier to communicate it. Because if you don't know what you feel, how are you gonna communicate? You can't. And so to start practicing this, I would answer honestly the next time somebody asks you, how are you? Don't just say good or bad. Explain why you're good. Explain why you're bad. Explain why you're pissed. Give them context. Try to word what you're feeling. So for example, somebody were to ask how I am in this moment, I am very good. I'm very excited because I am getting LASIK on Monday and I cannot wait to see without glasses. Well, you don't know because most of the time you see me without glasses. But I remember the first time I put glasses on. It was crazy. And my prescription wasn't even that bad. It was like 0.5 and now it's 3.5, so it's quite worse. But I remember putting them on and I was looking at this tree and I could see all the details on the leaves. I was just like, oh my god, like I was just like astonished by the beauty of the tree. And so having glasses like has been a gift because I can really see everything with details, but it would be so much better if I didn't need glasses to see. But you see what I mean? Like I didn't just say, oh, I'm great, like thank you. Like no, I shared an experience, I shared my emotion, I shared what I'm feeling in this moment because I am very excited. So why keep it for yourself? Same thing if I was bad, I would tell you why I'm bad, what happened, why am I feeling a certain way. Because sometimes, for example, you have a bad day because somebody says something mean to you, but just saying, well, I had a bad day, somebody was mean to me, is not really giving context. Say why that really affected you, because maybe it wasn't the comment itself, maybe it was the way they said it that reminded you of somebody that really hurt you in the past. Maybe it reminded you when like you were bullied as a kid. Because most of the times when we suffer for something, it's not because of the person itself. They probably usually don't have that much value to us, but it's what they say and how we interpret it that affects us. Does that make sense? And you know, I live in Canada, so people ask how are you all the time, and at times I really do suspect that they don't care about how are you and it's just like, you know, a thing people say. And in that case, like don't spill your business to like strangers, but maybe when you're with a friend, ask them intentionally. Don't just say hi, how are you, and then start chatting about something else. Like actually in the middle of your conversation say, hey, how are you doing really? And then let them have the space to answer that question. Maybe they'll open up, maybe they won't. But if they're a friend, they will ask you the same question back. And hopefully by then you'll have the words to express how you really are feeling. And the last thing is to experience it, to let yourself experience what you're feeling. If you're happy, smile. You know, sometimes you're so happy you're gonna cry. Sometimes you're gonna be sad. And then you should let yourself cry, or whatever it is that you need to do in that moment. Maybe you wanna jump, maybe you wanna scream. Whatever it is that your body needs to truly feel that emotion, do it, because you are a human being and you need to feel emotions. This is what differentiates us from machines, right? We can experience emotions, and so why not? Like, the joy of life literally is feeling things. If we didn't feel anything, then we'd just be like amoebas on the floor and just doing nothing all day. Like, nothing makes sense if you're not feeling. So really, I'm serious, experience your emotions. It's the most beautiful gift you can give yourself. I am so happy to be a softie and be able to cry, laugh, dance. When I'm really happy, I'll just like skip around, like for real, like a kid, like da-da-da, I just go and skip. And my mom was laughing the other day because we were going to the grocery store and I was so happy, I was like skipping, and she told me that apparently when I was little and I was really happy, I would skip around just like go da-da-da. But then I would get upset if she wasn't skipping with me because I would be like, why aren't you happy? Like, so if you found this helpful, go watch this video where I talk about how to make better decisions in life. We hope you like it, and we hope to see you next week.